The golden rays of morning sunlight slowly crept through the heavy silk curtains of Kensington Palace, painting soft shadows across the marble floors of the royal residence. Prince William stirred in his bed as the first light touched his face, immediately remembering that this was no ordinary day. Today would be one of those special occasions that people would talk about for years to come, when the entire royal family would step out together before the watching eyes of the world. In the room next door, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was already awake and sitting quietly at her ornate dressing table. The antique mirror reflected her thoughtful expression as she mentally prepared herself for the day ahead. Her personal stylist, Amanda, had arrived an hour earlier and was now carefully laying out the elegant outfit that had been chosen weeks in advance for this momentous occasion. Every detail had been considered, from the color that would photograph beautifully to the style that would move gracefully as she walked. The children's wing of the palace was beginning to buzz with gentle activity. In his bedroom decorated with model airplanes and adventure books, Prince George was slowly waking up to the sound of his nanny, Maria, opening his curtains. At 10 years old, he understood the importance of royal duties better than his younger siblings, but he still felt butterflies in his stomach when he thought about all the people who would be watching them today. Princess Charlotte was already sitting up in her bed, surrounded by her favorite stuffed animals, asking Maria endless questions about what would happen at Westminster Abbey. Her excitement was infectious, and she kept bouncing slightly on her mattress as she imagined wearing her beautiful dress and seeing all the people who would come to watch them. She had been practicing her royal wave in the mirror for days, wanting to make sure she did everything perfectly. In the nursery, 4-year-old Prince Louis was still fast asleep, his dark hair messy against his pillow. He had no idea about the magnitude of the day ahead, but his innocent excitement when he heard about riding in the special car had made everyone smile. His nanny was already preparing his outfit, making sure every button was polished and every seam was perfectly pressed. Down in the palace kitchens, the staff had been working since before dawn to prepare a light breakfast for the family. Cook knew that nerves might affect appetites, so she had prepared simple favorites that the children enjoyed. Fresh fruit, warm toast with honey, and perfectly soft-boiled eggs were arranged on the finest china, ready to be served in the family dining room. The security team had been awake for hours, going through their detailed plans one final time. Every route had been checked and double-checked. Every possible scenario had been discussed, and every team member knew exactly where they needed to be and when. The head of security, James, walked through the palace corridors with his earpiece crackling softly as his team reported their positions. In the palace garage, the royal cars sat gleaming under the bright lights, having been cleaned and polished until they shone like mirrors. Each vehicle had been thoroughly inspected, and the drivers had rehearsed the exact route they would take to Westminster Abbey. The lead car bore the royal standard, and inside, fresh flowers had been arranged in small vases to make the journey more pleasant for the family. Outside the palace gates, the first photographers were already setting up their equipment, even though the royal family would not leave for several hours. These dedicated royal watchers knew that the best spots would be taken early, and they wanted to capture every moment of the family's departure from their home. Press Secretary Michael was in his office, fielding calls from news stations around the world, all wanting to confirm details about the timing and arrangements for the day. His desk was covered with schedules, press releases, and coordination notes as he managed the incredible interest from media outlets in dozens of countries. Palace housekeeping staff moved quietly through the corridors, making final touches to ensure everything was perfect. Fresh flowers were arranged in every room the family might pass through, carpets were given one last vacuum, and every surface was dusted until it gleamed. As the morning progressed, the atmosphere in Kensington Palace became increasingly charged with anticipation and careful preparation, setting the stage for what would become an unforgettable day in royal history. Princess Charlotte stood in front of her tall bedroom mirror, her eyes sparkling with pure delight as she looked at herself in the beautiful dress that hung perfectly on her small frame. The soft fabric felt like silk clouds against her skin, and she could not stop twirling to watch how the skirt moved around her legs like flower petals dancing in the wind. Her nanny Maria smiled warmly as she watched the young princess discover her reflection, knowing that moments like these were what childhood magic was made of. The 8-year-old princess had been dreaming about this day for weeks, ever since her mother had told her about the special service at Westminster Abbey. In her mind, she imagined herself as one of the princesses from her favorite storybooks, walking gracefully through grand halls while everyone admired her beautiful gown. She practiced her curtsy one more time, bending her knees just the way her etiquette teacher had shown her, and felt proud when Maria clapped softly in approval. Down the hallway in his bedroom, Prince Louis was having a completely different morning experience. The 4-year-old boy was practically bouncing off the walls with excitement, jumping from his bed to his toy chest and back again while his nanny tried to help him get dressed. His energy was unstoppable as he chatted non-stop about riding in the fancy car with the special flags that would take them to the big church. Prince Louis had never been to Westminster Abbey before, and in his young mind, he pictured it as a magical castle where knights and dragons might live. He kept asking his nanny if there would be horses there, and whether he might see any soldiers in shiny armor. His innocent questions and boundless enthusiasm made everyone around him smile, even though they worried about how he would sit still during the serious ceremony. Meanwhile, Prince George was trying his best to act like the responsible big brother he knew he was expected to be. At 10 years old, he understood more than his siblings about the importance of royal duties and how many people would be watching them today. He sat on the edge of his bed while his nanny helped him with his formal suit, trying to calm the nervous feeling in his stomach by taking deep breaths the way his father had taught him. Prince George had been to Westminster Abbey before for other royal events, so he knew how grand and serious it could be inside the ancient building. He remembered the soaring ceilings, the beautiful stained glass windows, and the way voices echoed in the vast space. Sometimes he felt the weight of being the oldest child, knowing that people expected him to set a good example for Charlotte and Louis to follow. In the master bedroom, Prince William was helping Catherine choose the final accessories for her outfit. They spoke quietly together, discussing the day ahead and making sure they had thought of everything the children might need during the service. William could see the care and attention his wife put into every detail, not just for herself but for their whole family. He admired how naturally she had grown into her role as a working royal, always thinking about how to make public events comfortable for their children. Catherine was busy going through a mental checklist of everything they would need for the day. She had packed a small bag with quiet toys for Louis in case he got restless, tissues for any unexpected moments, and small snacks wrapped discreetly in case any of the children got hungry during the long ceremony. Her experience as a mother had taught her that preparation was key to helping young children handle formal occasions successfully. The children had been practicing their best behavior for days leading up to this event. They knew they needed to walk slowly and quietly, sit still during the service, and smile politely at all the people who would be there to see them. Charlotte had been rehearsing her royal wave, making sure her hand moved gently from side to side rather than the enthusiastic waving she usually did when excited. As morning breakfast time approached, the 3 children were finally dressed and ready, each showing their personality in how they handled the anticipation of the day ahead. Charlotte continued admiring herself in mirrors, Louis kept asking when they could leave for the adventure, and George quietly reviewed his parents' instructions about proper behavior during the ceremony. The impressive iron gates of Kensington Palace opened slowly with a deep mechanical sound that echoed across the courtyard, signaling the beginning of the royal family's journey to Westminster Abbey. Prince William settled into the back seat of the gleaming black car, adjusting his formal uniform one final time as he felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Beside him, Catherine looked absolutely radiant in her carefully chosen outfit, her calm demeanor helping to soothe any lingering nerves the children might have been feeling. The 3 young royals sat between their parents, their eyes wide with wonder as they peered through the specially tinted windows of the official royal vehicle. Princess Charlotte pressed her small face against the cool glass, her breath creating tiny foggy patches as she tried to see everything at once. The streets looked different from inside the car than they did during their usual trips around London, and she found herself fascinated by this new perspective of the world outside their palace walls. Prince Louis bounced slightly in his seat, barely able to contain his excitement as the convoy began moving through the palace grounds. His little hands were pressed against the window, and he kept pointing at various sights, whispering loudly to his parents about everything he could see. The security cars surrounding them looked like something from the adventure movies he loved watching, and he felt like he was part of an important secret mission. Prince George sat more quietly than his siblings, watching the familiar London streets pass by with a thoughtful expression on his young face. He had traveled this route before for other royal events, but today felt different somehow. The 10-year-old could sense the increased security and the careful way the adults spoke to each other, and he understood that this was one of those occasions his parents had prepared him for throughout his young life. Outside the car windows, the streets of London began to come alive with people who had gathered to catch a glimpse of the royal family. Many had been waiting since the early hours of the morning, bringing folding chairs, thermoses of hot tea, and small Union Jack flags to wave when the convoy passed by. Some families had made it a special outing, with children dressed in their finest clothes and parents carrying cameras to capture the historic moment. The convoy moved at a stately pace through the London streets, allowing people along the route to see the royal family clearly through the windows. Police officers stood at every major intersection, directing traffic and ensuring that the path remained clear and safe. Motorcycle escorts rode alongside the cars, their engines adding a low rumble to the soundtrack of the morning journey. Catherine pointed out various landmarks to the children as they traveled, her voice soft and reassuring as she helped them understand the significance of the route they were taking. She showed them the beautiful parks they passed, the historic buildings that lined their path, and the crowds of people who had come specially to see them. Her gentle commentary helped the children feel more relaxed and excited, rather than nervous about their destination. As they approached the area around Westminster Abbey, the crowds grew thicker and more enthusiastic. People lined both sides of the street, some calling out greetings and well wishes to the royal family. Prince Louis waved back enthusiastically whenever he spotted someone looking at their car, his innocent joy bringing smiles to the faces of the security officers riding with them. William kept one protective arm around his youngest son while using his free hand to point out interesting sights to all three children. He remembered his own first visits to Westminster Abbey as a young boy, and he wanted his children to feel the same sense of wonder and connection to British history that he had experienced. The ancient building held so many memories for the royal family, and today would add another important chapter to that long story. The journey that usually took only 15 minutes was deliberately extended to allow more people along the route to see the royal family, and the children found themselves settling into the rhythm of the slow, ceremonial drive through central London. The ancient cobblestones around Westminster Abbey vibrated with the footsteps of thousands of people who had gathered since dawn, all hoping to witness the royal family's arrival at one of Britain's most sacred buildings. The crowd stretched as far as the eye could see, creating a sea of colorful clothing, excited faces, and small Union Jack flags that fluttered in the gentle morning breeze. Many people had traveled from distant parts of the country, bringing picnic baskets and folding chairs to make their long wait more comfortable. Television crews from around the world had claimed their spots hours earlier, setting up sophisticated camera equipment and satellite dishes that would broadcast this moment to millions of viewers across the globe. Reporters from different countries spoke into their microphones in various languages, describing the growing excitement and the significance of the royal family's public appearance. The international media presence showed just how much global interest there was in seeing Prince William, Catherine, and their children together at such an important occasion. Social media platforms buzzed with real-time updates as people in the crowd shared photos and videos of the gathering excitement. Hashtags related to the royal visit began trending worldwide, with royal fans from every continent posting messages of support and admiration for the family. Some lucky spectators who had secured spots close to the barriers live-streamed the scene, giving people unable to attend a chance to experience the atmosphere from their homes. Street vendors walked through the crowd selling royal-themed souvenirs, from small plastic crowns to commemorative mugs decorated with photos of the royal family. Children clutched miniature flags while their parents bought newspapers and magazines featuring special editions about the royal visit. The smell of fresh flowers filled the air, as many people had brought bouquets hoping to present them to Catherine and the children when they arrived. Police officers and security personnel moved efficiently through the crowd, maintaining order while keeping the atmosphere light and celebratory. They had been planning this operation for weeks, coordinating with multiple agencies to ensure the safety of both the royal family and the thousands of people who would come to see them. Mounted police officers sat proudly on their horses at strategic points, adding to the ceremonial feeling of the occasion. Behind the metal barriers that kept the crowd at a safe distance, people of all ages stood shoulder to shoulder, sharing stories about previous royal sightings and expressing their excitement about finally seeing the young princes and princess in person. Elderly royal fans shared their memories of past royal events with younger spectators, creating connections between different generations united by their appreciation for the monarchy. The magnificent Gothic towers of Westminster Abbey provided a stunning backdrop for the gathering crowd, their ancient stone walls having witnessed centuries of royal ceremonies and historic moments. Tourists who had been visiting the Abbey for other reasons found themselves swept up in the excitement, taking countless photos of both the building and the enthusiastic crowd waiting outside its doors. Local shop owners had decorated their windows with royal-themed displays, and many businesses along the route had closed for the morning so their employees could join the spectators lining the streets. The economic impact of royal visits always brought communities together, and today was no exception as local cafes struggled to keep up with demand for hot drinks and snacks from the waiting crowds. As the morning progressed, the energy of the crowd continued to build, with occasional cheers erupting when official cars passed by or when rumors spread that the royal family was approaching. Children sat on their parents' shoulders to get better views, and everyone seemed to have their cameras ready to capture the moment when the royal convoy would finally come into sight. The atmosphere outside Westminster Abbey had transformed from early morning anticipation into electric excitement, with thousands of people creating a living, breathing celebration of one family's public service and the enduring appeal of royal tradition in modern Britain. A low murmur of excitement rippled through the massive crowd as the first glimpse of the royal convoy appeared at the far end of the street, the sleek black cars moving with dignified precision through the cleared London roads. The morning sunlight reflected off the polished surfaces of the vehicles, creating flashes of brilliance that caught the attention of every person standing behind the barriers. Security motorcycles flanked the cars on both sides, their engines creating a low rumbling sound that announced the approach of something truly special. As the convoy drew closer to Westminster Abbey, the sound of the crowd grew louder and more excited, with thousands of voices joining together in a spontaneous cheer that echoed off the ancient stone walls of the surrounding buildings. Cameras began clicking rapidly, creating a symphony of shutter sounds as photographers, both professional and amateur, tried to capture the perfect shot of the approaching royal vehicles. The air seemed to crackle with anticipation as everyone strained forward, hoping to catch their first glimpse of the royal family through the tinted windows. The lead car in the convoy bore the royal standard, a flag that fluttered proudly in the breeze created by their movement, signaling to everyone present that they were about to witness something historic. Behind the first security vehicle, the main car carrying Prince William, Catherine, and their 3 children moved at a stately pace, allowing people along the route to see the occupants clearly despite the protective glass that surrounded them. Inside the approaching vehicle, Princess Charlotte had positioned herself at the window, her small hand pressed against the glass as she watched the incredible scene unfolding outside. The sight of so many people, all gathered just to see her family, filled her 8-year-old heart with wonder and a growing understanding of what it meant to be part of the royal family. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she took in the colorful flags, the smiling faces, and the cameras pointed in their direction. Prince Louis had become momentarily quiet, his usual boundless energy temporarily subdued by the sheer magnitude of what he was seeing through the car window. The 4-year-old had never experienced anything quite like this before, and his young mind struggled to process the fact that all these people had come specifically to see him and his family. His small hand found his father's larger one, seeking comfort and reassurance in the face of such overwhelming attention. Prince George sat up straighter in his seat as he recognized the familiar sight of Westminster Abbey coming into view, its twin towers rising majestically against the clear blue sky. The 10-year-old had been here before, but never with such an enormous crowd gathered outside, and he felt a mixture of pride and nervousness as he prepared for what was to come. He understood better than his younger siblings that this moment would be remembered and talked about for years to come. The crowd's excitement reached a crescendo as the royal car finally came to a complete stop directly in front of Westminster Abbey's grand entrance, where a red carpet had been carefully laid out in preparation for their arrival. Palace officials and church dignitaries stood ready to welcome the family, their formal attire adding to the ceremony of the moment. Security personnel took their positions around the vehicle, creating a protective barrier while still allowing the gathered spectators to see everything that was happening. Television commentators around the world began describing the scene to their audiences, their voices filled with the same excitement that permeated the crowd outside the Abbey. The moment everyone had been waiting for had finally arrived, and thousands of people held their breath in anticipation as the car doors prepared to open. Camera operators adjusted their equipment for the perfect angle, while members of the public stood on their tiptoes and held their phones high above their heads, ready to capture this once-in-a-lifetime moment when the royal family would step out before the watching world. The car door opened smoothly and silently, revealing Prince William as he stepped out onto the red carpet with the practiced grace that comes from years of public appearances. His tall frame looked impressive in his formal military uniform, the medals and decorations catching the morning sunlight as he turned to help his family exit the vehicle. The crowd erupted in enthusiastic cheers and applause, their excitement reaching new heights as they finally saw the future king in person, looking every bit as dignified and handsome as they had hoped. Catherine emerged next, and the crowd seemed to collectively hold its breath as she appeared in her stunning outfit, every detail of which had been carefully chosen for this special occasion. Her elegant coat moved gracefully around her as she stepped onto the red carpet, and her warm, genuine smile immediately won over every heart in the gathered audience. The princess looked absolutely radiant, her hair styled to perfection, and her posture conveying both confidence and approachability that made her so beloved by the British public. A particularly loud cheer went up from the crowd as Princess Charlotte appeared in the car doorway, her beautiful dress catching the light as she carefully stepped out with her father's supporting hand. The 8-year-old looked like a fairy tale princess come to life, and her natural grace and poise impressed everyone watching. She paused for just a moment, taking in the incredible sight of thousands of people all looking at her family with such joy and admiration, and her face lit up with a delighted smile that melted hearts around the world. Prince George followed his sister, emerging from the car with the serious expression of a young boy who understands the importance of the moment. At 10 years old, he had learned to carry himself with dignity during public appearances, and today he looked particularly grown up in his smart formal suit. The crowd appreciated seeing the future king looking so composed and responsible, and many people commented on how much he resembled his father at that age. Finally, Prince Louis appeared, his 4-year-old curiosity immediately evident as his wide eyes took in the spectacular scene around him. The youngest prince looked adorable in his carefully chosen outfit, and his innocent wonder at seeing so many people gathered just to see his family brought smiles to faces throughout the crowd. He stayed close to his parents, occasionally hiding behind his mother's coat when the attention became overwhelming, which only made the spectators find him more endearing. The family stood together for a moment beside their car, creating a picture-perfect scene that photographers captured from every possible angle. Prince William placed a protective hand on Prince George's shoulder, while Catherine kept Princess Charlotte close to her side, and Prince Louis held tightly to his father's other hand. They looked like the ideal royal family, elegant and united, ready to fulfill their public duties while maintaining the warmth and love that clearly existed between them. Palace staff members stood nearby, ready to assist with anything the family might need, while security officers maintained their watchful positions without being intrusive. The red carpet stretched before them like a royal pathway leading to the ancient doors of Westminster Abbey, where church officials waited to welcome them into the sacred building. The morning sun cast everything in a golden glow that made the moment feel even more magical and significant. Members of the crowd called out words of admiration and support, their voices mixing together in a chorus of appreciation for the royal family. Some people waved small flags enthusiastically, while others simply stood in respectful silence, content to witness this historic moment. The international media captured every second, knowing that these images would be shared around the world and remembered for generations to come, representing a perfect example of the modern British monarchy connecting with the people they serve. With Prince William leading the way and Catherine gently guiding the children from behind, the royal family began their elegant procession along the red carpet toward the imposing entrance of Westminster Abbey. Each step they took was measured and graceful, reflecting the years of training and preparation that had taught them how to move with dignity in the public eye. The ancient cobblestones beneath the carpet had witnessed countless royal ceremonies over the centuries, and today they would add another memorable chapter to the Abbey's long and storied history. Princess Charlotte walked carefully between her parents, mindful of her beautiful dress and the special shoes that had been chosen to match her outfit perfectly. Every few steps, she would glance up at the crowds lining their path, her face showing a mixture of excitement and concentration as she remembered all the lessons about proper behavior during formal occasions. The 8-year-old princess had practiced walking slowly and gracefully many times in the palace corridors, but this was different with so many people watching and cameras recording her every movement. Prince Louis held his father's hand tightly as they made their way along the red carpet, his young mind still trying to process the incredible sight of thousands of people all gathered to see his family. The 4-year-old occasionally looked up at Prince William with expressions that seemed to ask if he was doing everything correctly, and his father's reassuring smiles and gentle squeezes of his hand helped keep him calm and confident. Despite his usual energetic nature, Prince Louis seemed to understand that this was a special time requiring his best behavior. Prince George walked with his shoulders straight and his head held high, demonstrating the poise and maturity that impressed everyone who watched him. The 10-year-old had been coached by his parents about the importance of setting a good example for his younger siblings, and he took this responsibility seriously. His measured steps and composed demeanor showed that he understood his role as the eldest child and future heir, even at such a young age. The crowd continued to cheer and call out encouragements as the family progressed toward the Abbey entrance, with many people commenting on how wonderful the children looked and how beautifully they were behaving. Photographers positioned along the route captured image after image of the family's procession, knowing that these pictures would become iconic representations of this special day. Television cameras followed their every move, broadcasting the scene live to millions of viewers around the world who were following the royal family's public appearance. Catherine walked with the natural grace that had made her such a beloved member of the royal family, occasionally placing a gentle hand on Princess Charlotte's shoulder or sharing a subtle smile with Prince William. Her presence seemed to calm and reassure the children, and her own confidence helped them feel more comfortable with the attention they were receiving. The princess had become expert at balancing her role as a public figure with her instincts as a protective mother. Palace officials and church dignitaries lined the path, bowing respectfully as the royal family passed by on their way to the Abbey entrance. Each person they encountered had been carefully briefed about the proper protocol for greeting members of the royal family, and the formality of these interactions added to the ceremonial atmosphere of the occasion. Security personnel moved discreetly alongside the procession, ensuring that everything proceeded smoothly while remaining as unobtrusive as possible. As they approached the magnificent doors of Westminster Abbey, the family's pace slowed slightly, allowing them a moment to appreciate the grandeur of the building they were about to enter. The Abbey's Gothic architecture towered above them, its ancient stones having welcomed kings, queens, and countless other notable figures throughout British history. Today, Prince William, Catherine, and their children would add their own presence to the long list of royals who had walked through these same doors on important occasions. The massive oak doors of Westminster Abbey stood open before them like a portal to another world, revealing glimpses of the magnificent interior that awaited the royal family beyond the threshold. Archbishop and other high-ranking church officials had positioned themselves just inside the entrance, their ceremonial robes adding splashes of gold and scarlet to the scene as they prepared to welcome Prince William, Catherine, and the children into the sacred space. The contrast between the bright outdoor sunlight and the more subdued lighting inside the abbey created a sense of entering somewhere truly special and holy. Catherine paused for a moment to make final adjustments to the children's appearance, smoothing down Princess Charlotte's dress and ensuring that Prince Louis's collar lay perfectly straight. These small maternal gestures, performed with loving care despite being observed by thousands of people, reminded everyone watching that beneath all the royal protocol and ceremony, this was simply a mother looking after her children. Prince William watched his wife's gentle ministrations with a fond smile, appreciating how naturally she balanced her public duties with her maternal instincts. Princess Charlotte looked up at the soaring stone arches visible through the abbey doorway, her 8-year-old imagination probably filling with thoughts of fairy tales and magical castles. The grandeur of Westminster Abbey was impressive even to adults who had seen it many times before, so for a young child experiencing it anew, the building must have seemed like something from a storybook. She unconsciously reached for her mother's hand, seeking comfort and connection, as they prepared to enter this awesome sacred space. Prince George gazed up at the intricate stonework surrounding the abbey entrance, appreciating the craftsmanship and history represented in every carved detail. At 10 years old, he had begun to understand more about British history and the significance of buildings like Westminster Abbey in the life of the nation. His parents had taught him about the coronations, royal weddings, and other important ceremonies that had taken place within these walls, and he felt honored to be following in the footsteps of so many generations of royals before him. Prince Louis pressed closer to his father as they approached the doorway, the 4-year-old feeling a bit overwhelmed by the size and majesty of the ancient building looming above them. The abbey seemed enormous from his perspective, and he could hear the soft sounds of voices and music echoing from somewhere deep within the interior. Prince William kept a reassuring hand on his youngest son's shoulder, helping him feel brave and secure as they prepared to enter the historic building together. The crowd outside had grown quieter as the royal family reached the threshold of Westminster Abbey, with many people holding their phones and cameras high to capture the momentous scene of the family about to disappear from view into the building. There was something almost magical about watching them pause at the entrance, silhouetted against the bright red carpet and framed by the ancient Gothic archway. This image would become one of the most memorable photographs of the entire day. Church bells had begun to ring out across London, their melodious chimes adding to the ceremony and significance of the royal family's arrival at Westminster Abbey. The sound echoed off the surrounding buildings and seemed to announce to the entire city that something important was happening within the walls of one of Britain's most treasured religious sites. People throughout London paused in their daily activities to listen to the bells and think about the royal family gathering for this special service. Television commentators prepared their audiences for the moment when the royal family would step inside Westminster Abbey and disappear from the view of the external cameras, explaining that the next part of the ceremony would take place within the sacred confines of the building. The anticipation was palpable as millions of viewers around the world waited to see the family cross the threshold and begin the next phase of this memorable public appearance that would be talked about and remembered for years to come. The moment had finally arrived as Prince William, took the first step across the threshold of Westminster Abbey, leading his family from the bright morning sunlight into the cool, hallowed interior of one of Britain's most sacred buildings. The transition from the external noise and excitement of the gathered crowds to the reverent atmosphere inside the abbey was immediate and profound, as if they had stepped into a completely different world where centuries of history and tradition seemed to whisper from every stone wall and soaring archway. The interior of Westminster Abbey revealed itself in all its Gothic magnificence, with towering columns reaching toward vaulted ceilings that seemed to stretch endlessly upward. Stained glass windows cast jeweled patterns of colored light across the ancient stone floors, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere that took the breath away from everyone who entered. The abbey had been prepared specially for this occasion, with flowers arranged in magnificent displays and additional lighting, installed to ensure that every detail of the architecture could be properly appreciated. As the royal family made their entrance, every person already seated within the abbey rose to their feet in a gesture of respect and welcome that created a rustling sound like gentle waves across the vast interior space. The congregation included dignitaries, church officials, government representatives, and specially invited guests, all of whom had been waiting patiently for this moment when the family would take their places for the special service. The sight of hundreds of people standing in unison was impressive and moving, showing the deep respect felt for the monarchy. Princess Charlotte walked between her parents, her eyes wide with wonder as she took in the incredible sight of the abbey interior, with its soaring ceilings and magnificent decorations. The 8-year-old had been in large churches before, but Westminster Abbey was special beyond anything she had previously experienced, and she could feel the weight of history and importance that seemed to fill every corner of the building. Her small hand found her mother's, seeking reassurance and connection in this awesome space. Prince Louis stayed very close to his father as they processed down the center aisle, the 4-year-old clearly overwhelmed by the size and grandeur of the building around him. The sound of their footsteps echoed softly on the stone floor, and he could see countless faces turning to watch their family as they made their way toward the front of the abbey. Prince William kept a protective arm around his youngest son, helping him feel safe and secure despite the formal and imposing surroundings. Prince George walked with quiet dignity beside his family, his young face showing both nervousness and pride as he participated in this important royal tradition. The 10-year-old understood better than his siblings the significance of being in Westminster Abbey for a special service, and he felt honored to be part of such a historic occasion. His training in royal protocol served him well as he maintained proper posture and behavior while processing through the abbey. Catherine moved with natural grace and poise, her presence bringing warmth and approachability to the formal ceremony taking place around them. She kept a watchful eye on all 3 children, while maintaining her own dignified bearing, demonstrating the skill she had developed in balancing her roles as both a public figure and a devoted mother. Her gentle guidance helped the children feel comfortable and confident in this grand setting. The royal family reached their designated seats in the front section of the abbey, where centuries of monarchs and their families had sat during countless important ceremonies. As they settled into their places, the congregation remained standing until they were seated, following the established protocol that governed such formal occasions. The front pews offered them an excellent view of the altar and the magnificent architecture that surrounded them on all sides. As the service began with the opening notes of sacred music filling every corner of Westminster Abbey, the royal family bowed their heads in prayer along with everyone else present. This moment marked the completion of their public journey from Kensington Palace to one of the most important religious buildings in Britain, and the beginning of a ceremony that would create lasting memories for them and for everyone privileged to witness this special day. The sight of Prince William, Catherine, and their 3 children participating together in this ancient tradition represented the continuation of a royal legacy that stretched back hundreds of years and would continue long into the future.